So, I thought I'd give some thoughts on first 1516 letters of Seneca, and the thing that I keep coming back to when I'm thinking about it, or at least the first thought that I had, was the difference between this and Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. Now, the difference is not in the ideas. They're not entirely identical, but they're basically the same thing. They're speaking on the same sort of topics, and they have the same basic principles they're going into. The difference is in the readability. Seneca is talking to a friend of his. Now, like any two close friends talking, they've got, I'm sure, inside jokes, and they're referencing things like, I don't know who Chrysippus is or Antonidonus. I don't know who that guy is. I don't know who any of those people are. I don't know any of their stories about, oh hey, you remember that guy that we met in the forum? No, don't know that. But because he's speaking to a friend, he's speaking in a way that we can recognize. We can understand who he's talking to, why he's talking to us. And if we want to be a little bit, try to get ourselves a little bit more into the story, we can pretend that we are Lucilius, who all the letters so far have been addressed to, and maybe all the letters in the future will be. Now that's great. It also means that he is speaking to someone who could possibly misunderstand him, because even close friends are not infallible communicators with each other. So he is speaking with the unconscious or conscious knowledge that if he doesn't actually choose his words correctly, if he doesn't put forth his thoughts logically and in, reasonable terms, he's actually going to be misunderstood. And that's a problem. Especially if you're actually trying to communicate an idea. Especially complex, important ideas. You want to be clear. You want to be communicative effectively. Now, Marcus Aurelius does not do this. That's because he's writing to himself. And he's writing to himself in the way that I think anyone else writes notes to themselves, which is to say, they use strange shorthand that at the time makes perfect total sense, but if you try to reread it, a year later, hell, maybe even a couple months later, you're toast, you're lost. It's like a complete stranger wrote hieroglyphics, but in your handwriting. It's ridiculous. So, the fun part about this is the ideas are, again, the important part in any kind of, guide to philosophy, any sort of writings on philosophy, any sort of philosophical works. The ideas and the reasoning behind it, they are the important part. Now, I think Marcus Aurelius has the same good ideas, but the reasoning is not there because it doesn't need to be. It's only for himself. He's already reasoned it out. He doesn't need to explain it to somebody else. Now, unfortunately, that also means that his stuff tends to come off arcane and obscure and unreadable. That's not his fault, but I also think it does lend his stuff, which is obviously far more popular than Seneca, it lends it a popularity that is undeserved, frankly. Let's be totally honest here. And it gains that because the lack of effective communication, the denseness, the obtuseness of that work actually lends itself better to critics. Because, this is just my personal opinion, but I think it's 100% completely correct and everyone should agree with it. Critics tend to like stuff that is unreadable. And they like it not because it's actually so incredibly dense and cerebral and, It's a work of complete and total genius. They like it because no one else would read it. And that means they can write papers on it and say whatever the hell they want and not get immediately smacked down and called out by all of the people who've read it. Yeah, guess what? Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, King Killer Chronicles, the best, is written better than fucking The Great Gatsby, In Cold Blood, The Invisible Man. Every book that you had to read, you were forced to read by your English teacher in high school, suck. They're terrible. They're god-awful, terrible books that you're forced to read because the English teacher can wax poetic and, stroke themselves off as if they are discovering something incredible. And it's like, no, you maybe teased out one reasonable idea or theme from this unreadable piece of crap. And that made you feel like a freaking genius. But it's only in the context of, yeah, that's only because no one else who actually had things to do ever took the time to read this. Because why would they? Why would you waste your time? Waste your time, waste your life shoveling shit in the form of some crap hole book. You're not going to do that. Screw it. It's terrible. Now, so, yeah. So you know what? It's actually a lot harder to write a book that is good and readable and popular, generally speaking. Yeah, because guess what? That means you have to have a good, cohesive story. You have to know how story structure works. You have to be able to write characters. You have to, more or less be able to write dialogue. And then you also have to have a good idea that is then creatively fleshed out and molded into a story. Yeah, if you want critical acclaim, all you have to do is write in a verbose, arcane, completely unreadable style and choose a subject matter that is sad or tragic. Yeah. So, yeah, like whatever the buzzword is nowadays, just write some unreadable piece of crap about gender identity, about racism, about some horrible, terrible murder. Yeah, some grisly, true life story. Yeah, that, guess what? No one really actually wants to hear about. Yeah, because we've got our own personal tragedies coming at us at a, yearly, monthly, weekly, daily basis. Okay? We don't need somebody else's. Yeah, but, hey, that stuff that turns us normal people off, that is a critic's catnip, because it means no one else is going to read it and they can say whatever the hell they want and sound like an absolute super genius. Now, pulling this back together, that's what Marcus Aurelius is. Now, Marcus Aurelius actually is, again, I'm not going to say he's not a wise, thoughtful, intelligent person, but his book is not well written for an audience of anyone other than himself to read. As opposed to Seneca, his ideas are coherently, cogently, readably put together in such a way that you actually absorb the ideas in a much more palatable, reasonable sense. Now that's fantastic, and that's what you want for a philosophy that is, again, supposed to be imparting to you principles by which to live your life better. If you miss the point because you can't read a sentence without going, cross-eyed, you kind of missed the boat, missed the point. So, as far as recommendations go, if you're going to read stuff, I guess read Seneca. If you're trying to impress somebody, read Marcus Aurelius. And quote him. That's good too. Yeah, quote Marcus Aurelius. Use some of his, obtuse, clunky sayings. And yeah, you know what? If you can do it in the Latin, the original Latin, oh my God. You are going to New York City, baby, and you are going to be the toast of the town. Alright, now again, if you actually would like to make your life better, well, then in that case, do whatever the hell you want as long as you're making your life better. You know what those things are. You do. You know it inherently, intrinsically. Yeah, now if you'd like a guide on how to maybe do that in a modern world, or well, just in the world in general, Stoicism, not a bad way to go. Maybe it's not your cup of tea, but if it sounds like maybe it is, or to be perfectly honest, if you're just a fellow traveler on the road of, self-improvement and philosophy, Stoicism's a great starting point for a philosophy that actually is applicable to your personal life and how you deal with the world. So, all that being said, let's see. Alright, wrapping up housekeeping stuff. I think I'm going to change the way I do this. I'm only going to read one letter a day, because the last couple have gotten really unwieldily long, and I don't think it's as enjoyable for you. If it is and you like it, let me know. Let me know in the comments. I got no problem recording for, longer times if that's what you want. Alright, now that being said, thanks for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. I applaud you for it, in fact. Sincerely, seriously, not sarcastically. And see you on the flip side. Goodbye.